Oh, let's continue with 40 big blinds, and it's basically the same again. We defend fairly tight against squeezes, and the most common leak I see is that people overcall against squeezes. Yes, you get better odds, but it's the same with defending multi-way. If you check the defending multi-way ranges, you will see that we have to defend tighter because our opponents also have equity on the pot. They have a share on the pot, and the more players enter the pot, the lower our equity, right? Even if you have aces against one player, you have more equity than against two players, and that is with every single hand the case. So here, yes, you get a good price, but in a squeeze pot, and remember, someone is squeezing probably to 8 or to 10 big blinds, so the pot is going to be 25 to 30 big blinds, and we have just pot left. So overcalling squeezes is something a lot of players do wrong. So here, these are the hands we continue against the squeeze, and these are the additional hands we call against squeeze when the pre-flop aggressor has folded. When the pre-flop aggressor has called, then we fold ace 10, king jack, and queen jack suited. All right, and we don't call these pairs. We are not deep enough. I mean, we have slightly over pot left, and the equity is just not enough. Even sevens is quite marginal, but so you know, these are the hands we start considering defending against the squeeze. Yeah, here 3-bet call or go all in means you 3-bet, and then you either call a 4-bet or you go all in. I don't want to restrict you to one single play and say, okay, 3-bet call and go all in. Or 3-bet call and all in, or 3-bet go all in. But I want to leave the decision on you whether you call a 4-bet and you play post-flop or you go all in. If someone is tight, I would fast play my premium hands. If someone is loose and aggressive, I would very often mix in some traps with aces, kings, even queens, and just jam ace, king suited. And then, yeah, we also go broke with ace, queen suited, ace, jack suited. We can do both. I mean, 40 bigs against most players that 4-bet jam, also sometimes weaker hands, we just simply have to stack it off. If you play someone that is against someone that is tight and you 3-bet for value and then he jams on, you can also fold. This is also a very big league. A lot of players they label a hand as a value hand, but then actually once they face a ton of action, they're not able to fold it because they still have this label of, yeah, I was supposed to play it as a value hand. It's totally okay to play it as a value 3-bet, but not to plan to go broke. Okay, something you need to learn. It also goes with river value betting, and I think what the reason why so many players struggle value betting accordingly, because they tag a hand as value hand, and then they value bet, and then they face a jam like, but it was a value bet and it's a value hand, so I'm supposed to call, and they make horrible hero calls and punt their stacks away. So we value 3-bet, but doesn't necessarily mean we have to go broke. In theory, it says if you 3-bet this hand, you have to go broke. Otherwise, you would be 3-bet folding too much. And against a reasonable 4-betting range, it's a profitable in-get. Don't misunderstand that sometimes we do minus EV plays to balance our range. No. They're against the right strategy, against the proper strategy, it's always a profitable 3-bet and then also a call against an all-in. So other than that, you see we defend a ton of hands. Let's go to big blind versus MP. You see the same spiel here as well. Now we mix in some flats with ace queen off. Actually also button versus cutoff. Okay, this is definitely wrong. I will fix that with ace queen off here. This is of course always a defend against the squeeze. If we flat this hand, same with here. So I'm gonna fix that as well. But you can see here already ace 10, king jack suited are folds. If we face a squeeze, queen jack suited, king queen suited, ace jack suited, we defend. Queen jack suited, king jack, it's really close. Queen jack suited we want to defend because we just have more equity against hands like ace king. And yeah, just performs a little bit better against the value range. Let's see if there's something else. Other than that, it's very self-explaining. If you play against a very, very aggressive player in the blinds that squeezes a ton, then you can also mix in 7s and king jack suited, ace 10 suited as defend. That's totally fine. And only 8s, 9s, 10s we call versus squeeze. These are also fine hands. I mean, 10s, 9s, 8s, same spiel here. If someone open raises, you call and blind squeeze. The preflop raiser calls as well. I would usually just go ahead and shove. I mean, there's so much dead money in the middle. If for the unlikely scenario that both players folds, it's literally winning the lottery in terms of the EV that we gain. And usually one of the player folds. And keep in mind, if one of the player folds, he puts 10 additional, or 9, depends on the size of the squeeze. He did put 9 additional big, so we're free rolling for 9 additional big blinds. So we can double up, plus we have the money that was invested either from the player that squeezed or from the preflop aggressor. So that's why actually very often you want to go ahead and jam those gray hands. But yeah, if you're not sure if the player is aggressive enough, if he's capable of having a bluff squeezing range, then just call. But usually I would advise to go for shove. Button versus under the gun, you can see here. Now against under the gun range, we only continue when the preflop aggressor has folded. When the preflop aggressor calls, we fold ace queen off. Other than that, I mean, on the button here, we can call, we're now relatively deep, we call all pairs. Ace 3, ace 2 suited is also very marginal. I wouldn't mind calling, but only if the blinds are relatively tight, passive, weak. Queen 8 suited, Jack 8 suited, those hands we can then also start calling. Small blind versus cutoff. Hands we go broke with, 10s plus ace queen suited plus. The red ones I would 3-bet and just call a 4-bet. That's what theory says. If tight player 4-bets you, just fold queen jack suited, king jack suited, just fold 8s, just fold ace queen off, right? I mean, you're not going to get exploited. If he's tight, then he's tight, and you don't need to have a balanced 3-betting range. You just play your hand. Very important here. As you can see, we defend from the small blind passively very wide. Again, against squeezes, we only defend a few hands, namely 6s, 7s, 8s, king, queen, ace 10 suited, ace 9 suited. And of course, we only defend that after PFR has folded. If the PFR has called, we can't really continue anymore. It's how it is, and usually you wanna fold almost your entire range. I mean, king, queen suited, and 8s are somewhat close, but it's totally okay to just not call anything in these scenarios, unless the squeezer or the preflop aggressor is a huge fish. Then it's totally okay to call, let's say, king, queen suited, ace 10 suited, 8s, because once you hit, you will probably get enough payout from them and they will do a ton of mistakes. MP, we have the same. Yeah, now we 3-bet fold, queen jack suited, of course, king 10 suited. Even 7s, we don't continue against the squeeze. Small versus under the gun. Same principle here. The hands just change a little bit, and you can see we still defend extremely wide from the small blind, especially with those suited connected hands. Something you know from defending from the big blinds. Their equity realization is so insanely high that it even justifies to defend still relatively wide against tight range from the small blind, where we even get worse odds. And versus under the gun, you see here a bunch of mixing. We flat sometimes, we bluff 3-bet, and the main takeaway here is always don't 3-bet these garbage suited aces or suited connectors. If you somewhat play that range and you mix in some 3-bets with suited broadways, that's totally okay. Please don't do the mistake. 50% of the time I have to 3-bet queen jack suited. 50% of the time I have to 3-bet queen 10 suited. No. Okay. Try to follow this pattern. Try to play that range in terms of the overall range, so you know you play suited broadways, you sometimes, king, queen off you can play. And that's pretty much it. You mix in some bluff three bets with ace 8 suited and ace 10 suited. And ace check off is also somewhat close. You're totally fine. Let's say you call ace 8 suited 100% of the time. Let's say you play 10-9 suited. That's all right. So let's say you play 11.8% instead of 10.9%. That's totally all right. You're competing against players that still call all the suited aces in these spots here. They call all pocket pairs. They call all ace checks and king queen outs. So that's very important to understand here. You're going to do way less mistakes than your competitors. Okay? Of course, this is somewhat perfect, but we probably all of us, we're not going to be able to apply that 100% perfectly. Another gun, one versus another gun. You can also now, from the 30 big blind range, incorporate the same. You can play a 3-bet only strategy. And then you just let go of ace 5 suited 7s, and then you start 3-betting 8s plus and ace 9 suited plus, and you play a 3-bet only strategy. Totally fine as well. Let's jump to the big blind versus button range. We distinguish between min raise and 2.3x. So yeah, we again, theory would say 3-bet king 8 off, 3-bet queen 8 off, and these kind of hands, so very polarized. I'm not a big fan of it. I explained it in the 30 big blind ranges. So you see the same principle here. I think this will make you way more money in the long run. Small blind versus button. Okay, this is a little bit, it's not supposed to be here, but anyway, I'm gonna make a better order, so the small blind versus button will be over here in the small blind section. Nothing so spectacular. Big blind versus small blind. Same here. Theory wants us to 3-bet more of these off-suited high card hands, which I'm again. Now since we're deeper, I'm okay with 20 or 30 big blinds, but now we're deeper, and since people don't 4-bet as much as they're supposed to 4-bet shove some of these suited broadways, and most of the players are just calling it. So I think you should just go ahead and 3-bet a more playable hand. Hand selection. And against the min raise again, we defend any 2. And the reason why now we want to start 3-betting all our over pairs and not call, remember 20 big blinds, big blind versus small blind. You see here that we wanted to slow play all of these hands, is now we're way deeper and we want to start building a pot. You don't want to slow play when you are deeper. Big blind versus MP. These are the hands we want to bluff 3-bet with. 8s, 9s, 10s can be very tricky when facing a 4-bet. However, if you're not sure if you can just jam, call a 4-bet, play post-flop. If the guy keeps being aggressive post-flop, they usually have a good hand, then you just fold. And instead of investing your whole stack, you still have 20 big blinds or 15 big blinds left. Okay? Of course, these situations suck, but those are the hands we usually also want to be 3-betting with. And protect our hand. If you face a jam, we have to call. But a 4-bet usually is very, very strong, and you should be very careful. Big blind versus cutoff. You can see that we here 3-bet also more stronger hands. Suited queens, suited kings, some of these suited connectors, and also in comparison to the solver solutions, we are 3-bet folding a little bit more. First of all, most people still have a higher fold to 3-bet than theory suggests, and also you're gonna face less 4-bets than GTO suggests. Big blind versus under the gun. I mean, of course, now our range has to be a little tighter. We even start folding some of these off-suited aces against the 2.2, 2.3x open raise. And against the min raise, we defend some of these connectors here as well. And also now we get deeper. So now you will see, compared to 20, 30 big blinds, the deeper you get, actually the tighter you have to defend against tighter ranges. Because the deeper you are, the lower your equity realization. Cutoff versus MP. Yeah, here you have also all in after squeeze regardless of PFR calling or folding. So basically there's so much dead money in the middle that we should just shove. Ace jack suited is the hand we call versus squeeze regardless of PFR has been calling or not. And these are the hands we call after the PFR has folded. Our value hands, queens here now, since MP's folding range should be relatively polarized and strong, we just call a 4-bet and we're not going all in. Tens, jacks, nines, ace queen suited, we mix in some flat calls, so our flatting calling range is also protected. Cutoff versus UTG, similar pattern, but just a little tighter. Hijack versus MP, you see also now the ranges become more and more tighter. And hijack versus UTG. All right, that's it for 40 big blinds. All right, so let's continue with 50 big blinds. By the way, for the 30 big blinds, also for all other ranges, of course, I'm gonna structure them better. So I'm gonna move the tabs to the right section so that big blind versus all positions is in one order, and so on and so forth. And I think there was a mistake earlier, and wait, I think I showed you guys this range, which was tagged as big blind versus cutoff, and this range was tagged as big blind versus button. I just changed it. It was just a mistake. So this is fixed now as well.